The Buffalo Bills officially turned their attention to the Miami Dolphins on Wednesday with their first practice of the week. Sean McDermott and Josh Allen met the media, and we got an update on a very key Miami Dolphins player. I am Josh McCarty from Bills Chat. We're going to get into all of that right now. The biggest update we got on Wednesday was actually on the Miami Dolphins side, as star receiver Jalen Waddle was a full participant in practice. Waddle missed last week against the Broncos in concussion protocol, but the fact that he's already a full participant on Wednesday means there is a very good chance he's going to clear the protocol, and the Miami Dolphins should have Waddle and obviously Tyreek Hill available for this division tilt with the Buffalo Bills. But that is not the only injury news to follow this week, as both the Bills and the Dolphins had a long list of names that missed Wednesday's practice. It's important to know, though, these Wednesday practices, particularly for veterans, a lot of times they will designate them with an injury and a specific body part. But it does come down to the fact that it's Wednesday. These are some older players. And we'll just go through it right now, though. Ryan Bates missed with an ankle. That is something to worth monitoring, because he actually came out of the game last week against the Commanders, and Mitch Morse had to finish the game despite the fact that the backups were in. So, if anything, Ryan Bates is probably the biggest iffy one on this list, but he is just a backup center at this point. Leonard Floyd missed with an ankle, Micah Hyde with a hamstring, Saran Neal with an ankle, and Jordan Poyer with a knee. Both Poyer and Hyde had missed different practices last week. Both ended up playing. I would anticipate the Bills will have all hands on deck as far as those guys go in this matchup. On the other side for the Dolphins, though, a couple of key names to keep an eye on. Jalen Phillips, there's young, I almost called him a star, but star potential edge rusher. He has an oblique injury. He was able to play last week against the Broncos after missing week 2 against the Patriots. But what's interesting is he missed practice on Wednesday, wasn't even out there where the media was able to see him. And when you look at his snap counts, week 1 against the Chargers, he played 79 snaps. Week 3, returning from the injury, he only played 32 snaps. But a lot goes into that. They won the game 70-20. So it's entirely possible that his snap count was reduced by the fact that that game was essentially in garbage time by the time the second half kicked off. But it's worth wondering if Jalen Phillips, even if he plays this week, will be the full 100% version of himself, or if they're still going to have to ease him back in. Another very important name on the Dolphins injury report is offensive lineman Teron Armstead. He's a guy that historically deals with a lot of injuries. If you remember back to the playoff game last year, I think he had 3 or 4 different injuries designated. He managed to play through it. He is an excellent offensive tackle, but health has been his issue. Missed practice on Wednesday with back, ankle, and knee designations. My guess is he's going to play. He played last week against the Broncos. This is obviously a big game. And the Dolphins center, Connor Williams, missed practice with a groin injury. All of these will be worth monitoring as the week goes on. I do think it will at least raise an eyebrow if Phillips and Williams don't practice on Thursday. Armstead, I feel like at this point, they don't practice him at all, and he'll just play on Sunday. So I wouldn't worry about it too much unless he fails to get in like a limited session on Friday. But I would have guessed at this point, Armstead's going to play, and probably much like the Bills, the Dolphins will be all hands on deck with any player they can get out there. Let's talk a little bit about this matchup, because it is only Wednesday, and Luca and I will be here on Friday breaking it all down on Bills Chat Live. But there's a couple of thoughts I have early in the week, as this is a very big matchup for week 4 in the NFL. And I want to talk specifically about the Dolphins offense and what makes it so hard to defend. Tua right now is focusing so much on his first read. 80% of his throws are going to his first read. And I think a lot of Bills fans are viewing that as some knock on Tua, as if he's some product of the Mike McDaniel system. And that could be true. It could absolutely be true that Mike McDaniel is a wizard at creating offensive plays. He does come from the Kyle Shanahan coaching tree. But here's the problem: Mike McDaniel's not going anywhere. He and Tua are joined at the hip. So wherever you want to place not blame, but wherever you want to give credit, it doesn't matter. It's effective. Right now, it's the best offense in the league, and one of the best offenses we've seen in the sport in a long, long while, and they have game-breaking speed. So my first thought midweek on this is, You need to find a way to get Tua off his first read. I know Joe Marino talked about this quite a bit on Locked On Bills today, but I don't think this is the kind of week where you will judge defensive line success based on how many sacks you get on Tua. He's just not a quarterback you can get to the ground with as quick as he's releasing the ball. I think what the Bills need to do on the defensive line is one, really focus on the run game. I know what you're thinking. Whoa, we have Jalen Waddle, we have Tyreek Hill, we have Tua, who is in the conversation right now as one of the best quarterbacks in the sport, and you have Mike McDaniel, the wizard offensive coordinator. I understand. But they are running the ball as well as any team in this league right now. Raheem Mostert and Devon Achane both combined for over 400 yards last week rushing. So, what the Bills have to be able to find a way to do if they're going to slow down this Dolphins offense, this is not a stop the Dolphins game. I don't think anybody can do that. You have to find a way to slow them down. They have to be able to stop the run without overcommitting to the run. And to me, that starts with the defensive linemen. I don't need defensive linemen over pursuing trying to get Tua to the ground because he gets rid of the ball so fast. I would expect to see a lot more Shaq Lawson this week. We're obviously going to see Gregory Rousseau. Puna Ford was a healthy scratch last week against the Commanders. I would not be stunned at all if he's up for this game. I think for the defensive linemen this week, there are two primary objectives. One, focus on stopping the run, set the edge. You are the first line of defense against the run, and that is your job this week. Two, get your hands up in the passing lane. I don't care about your pass rush. I don't care about how much pressure you can get onto it. He's going to get rid of the ball like that. It's clog the lanes, find a way to muddy what he's seeing, and do whatever you can to get him off of his first read. That's what I'm thinking here on Wednesday. I have some other thoughts about what the Bills can do and what the Bills have historically done under Sean McDermott when it comes to things like post snap confusion that Hyde and Poyer have been so excellent at in their career. But as fast as they are getting the ball out and as good as Mike McDaniel is at getting the first read open, whether it's with this motion where Tyreek Hill and Waddle are just running full speed at the snap of the ball, it's just really hard to take that away. I am curious. I've seen this floated out there on Twitter. If this is a game where Kyer Elam would be up, I would predict not. I understand the thought process because he is the Bills' most athletic cornerback, and he's probably one of their best press man cornerbacks. And if you ever thought about a game where you could use that skill set, this would be it. But I don't think that the Bills are going to go into this game looking to shake up their defensive philosophy too much. I think they're going to stick to their scheme. If they trust Dane Jackson more than Kyer Elam in general, I expect they're going to trust Dane Jackson over Kyer Elam in this game. The next thing I want to talk about quickly, and you could really say this any week, but to me, just from the outside looking in, sitting here on Wednesday, this is a big red zone game. And last year, both the Bills and Dolphins were at the lower end of the top 10 in red zone percentage as far as converting red zone possessions into touchdowns. I had the numbers pulled up here. Let's see if I can find it. The Bills were, as I count, trying to stall, they were ninth in the league, 60.3% at converting red zone trips to touchdowns. This is 2022. And the Dolphins were 10th at 60% even. And if you remember back to the second regular season matchup in Buffalo with the snowballs and all that, the difference in that game was how many times the Dolphins got down to the red zone but had to settle for field goals, where the Bills got down to the red zone and they scored touchdowns. The Bills end up winning that game by 3, walk-off Tyler Bass field goal at the end. But I think in a game like this, I think both defenses are going to struggle to stop the other offense. I could be wrong. It's the NFL. There are very talented players on both defenses. I think the Dolphins have one of the more underrated defensive lines in the sport if they're all healthy and up and ready to roll. But in general, I think between the 20s, both of these teams will move the ball with pretty solid success. But what it comes down to is execution in the red zone. And this week, more than most weeks, I think both the Bills and the Dolphins are going to be much more aggressive on fourth down, 4th and 2, 4th and 3, 4th and 4, pushing the envelope, trying to find a way to get 7 instead of 3. The last thing I want to say, not necessarily about this matchup specifically, this is just more to my fellow Bills fans, or if there's any Dolphins fans out there watching, welcome. I mean, we definitely appreciate you tuning in. Don't make this game bigger than it is. I understand the hype around it. I understand that when you look at the NFL slate in week 4, this game just pops off the page, not just because we're Bills fans, but because this is the team right now that is the talk of the league, the Miami Dolphins taking on the team that has been the talk of the league the last couple years in the Buffalo Bills. The Bills eliminated them from the playoffs last year. Can the Dolphins catch the big bad Bills? It's in Buffalo. If the Dolphins win here, it's going to be holy cow, they've officially caught the Bills. But let's just all understand the context of what is really at stake. This is an early October regular season game. We don't have to look too far to find examples of early season, regular season wins that felt like a really big deal that ultimately didn't matter at all. The last 2 seasons, the Buffalo Bills have gone to Arrowhead and beaten the Chiefs on their home field in the regular season. Both times it felt like a franchise changing win. And both times, by the time the playoffs rolled around, the Chiefs had a higher seed. Get my finger on the camera here. And two, they made it further than the Bills. They won the Super Bowl last year. So let's keep the context in mind. Would you want the Bills to win this game? Absolutely. I want the Bills to win this game. Why wouldn't you? You don't want the Bills to fall to 0-2 in the AFC East, 2 games behind the Miami Dolphins. There's a lot of reasons why you want the Bills to win this game, but we have to keep in mind it's week 4. There are 17 games. And there are no 2 teams in the sport that are better examples of how much can change from late September, early October to January. Just looking at what happened to both of these teams last season, with the Dolphins going into the playoffs, with Howard playing with 2 injured groins, with Teron Armstead being held together by paper clips and duct tape, and no Tua. And then on the other side, you had the Bills playing without Von Miller, without Daquan Jones, without Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, not at all close to the best version of himself, dealing with a laundry list of injuries. Tre'Davious White still very much working his way back from that ACL injury. And they were just not the teams that you expected to see on paper when the season started. So what I will tell you is, yes, it's a big game for week 4. But for the context of the season, it's just 1 game. So whether the Bills win, whether the Bills lose, whether the Bills blow out the Dolphins, or whether the Dolphins come to Buffalo and blow out the Bills, all of these things are within the range of realistic outcomes. And it all amounts to one thing: a win or a loss in early October. For the Dolphins to be successful, we know they have to keep their key players healthy. They are a ticking time bomb of players that have a long history of not being able to stay healthy, and it starts with their quarterback. And nobody on this show is wishing injury on anybody. I think Tua is a great guy. He looks like a young star at quarterback, but the fact is he has never completed a full season in his career, and we are only in week 4. If he makes it a full 17 weeks, that will be fantastic, and the Dolphins will be a team to contend with. But we have barely finished the first chapter of this regular season, and that doesn't even count Jalen Ramsey, Howard, Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, players with long injury histories, whether it is in the NFL or dating back to college. And the Bills are not without their warts either. Aging safeties with recent injury histories. What will Von Miller look like coming off of the ACL injury? There's just a lot to get to. So it's a fun game. I can't wait to watch it. I can't wait to break it down much more thoroughly on Friday with my guy Luca on Bills Chat Live. But it's important for all of us to keep it in perspective. It's just the 4th game of the season. And whether it's a win or a loss, we'll probably largely not care about it once the playoffs roll around. And it'll be much more about what kind of form is our team in? Are they hot? Are they healthy? And are they in a position to make a run? That's all I got for today. If you could, please take a moment, if you're watching on YouTube, to like and subscribe. It helps us out so much as we are trying to build this channel up. As mentioned, we'll be back on Friday with Bill's Chat Live. We'll be obviously live after not being live last week because I was out of town. But we look forward to interacting with you, hearing about this big week 4 matchup with the Miami Dolphins. And then we will roll into our weekend coverage with me hosting the halftime show, and then Luca and I uploading Bills Chat post game when it's all said and done. I am Josh McCarty. I will see you next time on Bills Chat Quick Chat.